today we're going to be talking a little bit about analysis and reporting. I'll be focusing a little bit more on reporting just because in session 3, you guys told me that most of you are using methodologies that you were already familiar with. And so you have the idea of how to analyze. It was just a matter of getting the study off the ground. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about this a little bit. We will be covering just a quick recap of what happened last time, the depth of analysis, what to include in the case study. I'm going to share some presentation resources with you. For those of you who have looked at my huge Google Doc that's full of different resources, I basically cribbed from that. But to make it easier for you, I've linked them all to this deck so that you don't have to go hunting for these resources in the giant Google Doc. And then I'll be telling you what to do for the review submission. The date is now TBD. We might be changing that date depending on what the recruiter tells me. Okay, so in session 3, we discussed your project ideas. I shared some pro tips and mistakes to avoid for different methodologies. And I've linked the recording and the deck to the top so that you can easily access it if you need to review it. And I just wanted to mention, I was going to recap the results of the midpoint evaluation survey as well, but I only received 4 responses. I would love to hear more feedback about how this workshop series seems to be operating. So I think Janine is going to share a link to the survey. Again, this is the same survey from last month. So if you already completed it, please don't complete it again. But if you did not have a chance to complete this evaluation survey, please take some time and just give me feedback about how I'm doing and how you feel like this can be improved. This is all towards the end of improvement for a future iteration. But I certainly heard some things from the survey already, from these 4 responses that will help me try to improve your current experience as well. I'm not going to say what they are because I don't want to bias any future responses, but your feedback was definitely noted. Okay, so I was going to have a section where you guys tell me how your study went, but it sounds like not everybody has had the chance to field, so that's perfectly okay. It was great to get an update on how it's going. I'm glad that it is moving along. So let's talk a little bit about depth of analysis. I would say that definitely expect that things in industry just move very quickly. And to give a few examples, I have gone into work on a Monday thinking that I have a certain agenda for that day. And then about halfway through the day, end up in a meeting where everything has changed. And my project is either no longer relevant, it's been completely deprecated, or it needs to be shifted to be either a shorter methodology or just something completely different because we now have a different question to answer. So as an example, I once wrote a proposal for I think 15-minute survey. I then entered a meeting where it was decided that it needed to be shortened to something like a 5-question survey. So I wrote a second proposal. And then after meeting with my manager later that day, it got turned into a 1-question poll. So I had to do a slightly different research proposal at that time. And then because we were afraid of, I think this was a budget issue. We didn't have the budget approved yet to actually run this particular survey. We then deprecated this study for 2 months. Sorry, was there something? Did somebody say something? I heard somebody speaking. So it changed very quickly over the course of a day. And then something that I had spent, quite a bit of time developing then got deprecated for 2 months. And then somebody else ended up running the survey when there was time for it. So I guess I don't want to say spend very little time on everything that you do, but just kind of work knowing that it could change at any time. And you don't want to devote too many days or too many hours to one particular thing. Just keep checking in with your team and your manager to know, like, should you be proceeding and is everything on the right track? And I think that's another reason why I just really advocate a lot of transparency in what you're working on at that particular time, so that if you need to be steered in another direction, somebody can steer you before you get too far and you spend too much time in one particular direction. So for an interview study, which I tend to recruit somewhere between 8 to 12 participants for, maybe talk to them for about an hour, I take about 2 to 3 days to synthesize data. And this sort of overlaps with the study fielding. So as I'm interviewing participants, I will quickly jot down some key takeaways, any surprising insights that I want to be sure I check in with the other participants about as I go, so that I'm already kind of developing a perspective as I field the study. And then I sometimes, when I'm writing the report, I will say, okay, so I'm not sure if I thoroughly answered this question yet, and I'll go back into the data and just say, okay, maybe 5 people out of 8 mentioned this, and let me go ahead and put that in the report too. So it's kind of an ongoing process to analyze the data, and then it sort of comes together at the end. Like I guess you reach a point where you feel like you've gotten all the main insights from the data and are ready to answer the questions that your stakeholders were asking. In my experience in industry, stakeholders want your insights yesterday because they've already had to wait for you to perhaps submit the research plan for internal review. Not every company does this, but the company I am currently at does. There's internal review that your studies need to go through, that you've had to like program the survey in or program your screeners in, and actually recruit and select your participants. So a couple weeks may have passed by this point, maybe more, depending on what exactly it was that you decided to field. So they're hungry for the research, and they may want the quickest insights that you can offer them so that they can make a decision at that point. So I would say like many of my projects look like this in industry. I end up providing just a very quick bullet point list to my team. And then I'll dive into each of these points further in a report that I then share out to a larger group. But again, depending on the project and the particular feature or product that is in question, our leads may already have needed to make a go or no-go decision on whether to pursue something. So just, make sure that if you are to do a deeper dive after this initial share out, that it still makes sense to continue doing it. Sometimes there is foundational information there that will still make a difference to your org, and then you will just focus more on that piece rather than a feature that they may have decided to no longer support, or that they have decided to roll back and unship. And you'll very likely be the sole researcher on your project. We do collaborate, but most of the time, if you are collaborating, each person has like their own piece of the analysis that they're owning. So don't expect to spend a lot of time like going over the various codes or tags with the other researcher and trying to achieve some type of like reliability or I guess consensus on it. It seems to me actually that the more people that are involved in a particular project, the longer it seems to take to analyze. So I would say that any project that I've had where I had to code like survey responses or open-ended responses, I probably devoted a good 10 or 12 hours to, but over the course of about 2 days. So again, it's happening very quickly.
So could you touch a little bit more on that, like how the coding of the open-ended may differ from like the standard like method we do in academia, where we like create codes and then we go through the coding and then we do like the inter-reader reliability, that type of thing? Because like 10 to 12 hours sounds very quick to me compared to typically how I would have approached coding.
It's definitely intense. I will say that when I was in academia, I actually did not do any open-ended coding. So it's a little bit difficult for me to say exactly where the difference is, other than I would probably make one quick pass through, say 100 responses, have a general idea of what codes they're going to be, and then start going through the responses in more detail and actually like recoding them to match the codes that I've established. And it is absolutely time consuming. But you'll be the one making the decisions. You might weigh in or get your manager to weigh in and say, okay, should I be going higher level, which is usually the case. Sometimes you're getting a little too specific with your codes. Mm-hmm. But I think that can also be done. Codes can be collapsed in analysis, like in Python, or I think also in R. You'll have to excuse me, I don't actually use either. But if you get really detailed, you can combine those codes into like an overarching like parent code if necessary. But
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say you don't go through every single response you have before you establish what your codes are and move forward from there. Like take the first 100 or so responses, get an idea of what codes you're going to be using, focusing on.
And then are you usually doing this like manually, or are you using like software like Atlas or NVivo?
That's a great question. It seems to vary depending on the researcher I talk to, because people sometimes have their tools that they're used to using, and if they're able to get their company to support a license, then they can certainly use the software. I've heard of like Deduce, and I think XQDA potentially. Because I never used that software before, have actually just been coding either natively in whatever software was used to build the study. So it could be like Dscout. They have ways for you to tag and put people into groups. Or I seem to recall that this was also possible in the like enterprise version of Qualtrics, where they have something that allows you to analyze qualitative data on your own. So they'll show you all the different responses. You can create tags for them and then just like select the tag that you want to tag them with. I've done it that way. And I've also done it the super old fashioned way, which I think is in an Excel or a Google spreadsheet, where you just make another column and then figure out what codes you're going to be using and populate it as like a drop down, and then just code that way too. So with any of these methods, whatever is most efficient for you, I think is what I would personally choose. I've often, because I really like to learn new tools and add them to my researcher toolbox and to my resume, I'll sometimes seek out a new software or particular skill that I want to try whenever I do a new project, and just learn it as I go. But I would say, for the sake of speed and efficiency, you're probably going to choose the software that you're most familiar with already. It depends if you are collaborating with people who need you to do something specific. I've heard of teams that are recruiting for people who can do analysis in Python because all the other people on the team are using Python already. There is definitely going to be some variance there. I think, yes, at my past employers, they've just supported whatever software we're most comfortable with.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So these are some things that you might look for as you're doing your analysis. You don't necessarily analyze every single bit of information. You're looking for patterns. You're looking for things that answer your main research questions. Because as I mentioned, time is of the essence. Usually you want to give your stakeholders some direction on their decision making. So you'll just be looking for any signal that speaks to any of those things. You might have heard in other meetings that you've been attending that there are other questions that, say, other researchers have been asking, or questions that maybe your data scientist wants answered with qualitative data. Like maybe they have some specific insights from the data that they've been able to collect, but they don't know why it's happening. So you might be looking for answers like that. Definitely speak to your stakeholders there. Your manager is usually tapped in and can guide you there if necessary, and your product manager usually has these questions in mind as well. I've been very fortunate to work with product managers who have really clear questions that they're looking for answers to. You should be looking for surprising and interesting insights. Maybe it was not something that you set out to study, but then it'll turn up in the patterns that you're noticing from your data. If it's a evaluative study, like if this is a beta test where you're speaking to users who have had a chance to use your beta product, you might be looking for a specific experience that they had that you can use as a story as you present your case study to. It usually gets stakeholders really engaged and bought in because they want to improve that feature or that experience for Susie or Billy. Things that I like to take a look at are things that your team or product is doing well, because I guess it's very common for user research to come in and say, okay, these are the things that designers are doing wrong or that engineers have done wrong. But just know that your designers and engineers have been working for months to design and build the thing that you're studying. So you don't want to come in and tear apart their work. So you want to see what things like positive comments you've been receiving from your users are. And you also want to know what's working well for the user too, because ideally you shouldn't break the good experience that they are having. So as you iterate on the product and start changing things, you try to preserve either the general aspect of what was working well for the user or that experience itself. You'll definitely come up with potential new questions for future research, because sometimes your participants will ask, well, why can't I do this? Or like, is this something that exists? And it'll create some new questions in your mind. So you want to jot those down. That's probably not going to go into your presentation, but you would probably keep a bank of them somewhere as you plan future research. Like we usually roadmap our research to predict where we might be doing research over the next few months. So it's something that you can share with other researchers on your team or with your manager to know that those questions exist, because there might be answers for them that you can get in other ways. Like you could talk to other insights people at your organization, perhaps marketing insights, or your data scientists. They might already have some signal on these questions to help you already. And then feature requests. Typically users will say, well, I wish I could do this. Or I've been doing this, but it would be great if there was like something built into the product that would go ahead and let me do it instead of me having to hack the problem and solve it my way. And then, I keep a list of that. Generally, your product team is not going to be able to support every single feature request there is, especially if one person wants it. It's something very niche. But if you can identify what the root problem is, that can be helpful too, as your team starts planning for future quarters or future halves, and as you decide what research is going to happen in those future quarters. Okay, let's see. I guess I should pause really quick and just ask if there are any questions. Feel free to jump in. Since we're a small group, I think that's probably the easiest way. Any questions about what I just spoke about? No? Okay. Well, I think somebody put something in the chat, so let me just make sure.
I do have a question, sorry.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
So the term stakeholders. So in our work, we refer to partner agencies as our stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And so in this study, it's been a little tricky for me to like change my mindset, but essentially our stakeholders are us, right? Our office. This is what the case study is going to serve, right? Yeah. So when presenting the information, this is how I should use that term to refer to the office I'm affiliated with. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think those partner, the people that you guys normally refer to as stakeholders, your partner organizations could be clients potentially, or
clients, yeah.
Partners, you can even
partners, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And thank you for asking that question, because I did not think about how the term stakeholders could be used in other contexts. Yeah, I'm so used to thinking of them as generally my product team or whoever I'm helping by conducting the research. Okay, So as we start thinking about the deliverable, the presentation that you're putting together, audience is generally going to be your first question. Now, your presentation may vary if it's an interview presentation. So depending on the company that you interview for, you could very well be speaking only to other researchers. You could be speaking to an entire product team. So that could include engineers and designers. So you would definitely ask your recruiter or your hiring manager, who am I speaking to this time? Like, who should I be targeting my presentation towards? If it's a presentation for your entire workplace, you might want to keep it very general, but then have a lot of detailed research-related details in your appendix for other researchers, because those are the questions that they're going to have in their minds, but you don't want to distract non-researchers with that extra information. But thinking specifically about a case study for a portfolio, let's keep in mind some of the statistics that you guys have likely heard. I've read that recruiters typically spend less than 30 seconds on a resume. Sometimes it's even 6 to 7 seconds, just looking to see if they should triage a particular resume or if they should look a little bit deeper. So when it comes to portfolios, what I've read is that hiring managers and recruiters will maybe give it a glance for about 3 minutes before deciding if they want to dive any deeper and actually like click through the projects and see, you know, how much potential do you have to fit their team or their organization. So keeping that top of mind, you definitely want to give the information as succinctly as possible and like easy, I guess, make it findable. And then also just be able to hook them in some way. So maybe they aren't quite sure if your project is relevant, but you have something in there that piques their interest and gets them to look deeper. And that could be your potential foot in the door to score that interview. So let's talk a little bit about what to include in a portfolio case study. This part is probably just your first screen, or I guess thinking of this as a slide deck, this is pretty much going to be the first slide. Something that conveys what they're going to expect from reading this study, keeping it pretty specific. I really like to get the information of who the users were, especially if it's something relevant to the company that you're interviewing with. And just like telling what this particular type of study was. Like you can say this was an evaluative study or usability study, or it was a foundational study where we're exploring what direction to go in for this particular product. That gives, I guess, some of the needed information right away without them having to dive in. And then maybe like a quick line that tells them if this is a case study that they're looking for, like if they say, okay, this job is going to require experience with surveys and diary studies and interviews, you might want to have different case studies that tackle each of these methods. So I would list out something like, oh, this particular case study is going to involve a diary study and moderate interviews. If you have a niche market or sample, definitely mention that. And it could be something like nurses, firefighters, CEOs, hiring managers, young adults, or adults over 65. These are all kind of like special niches that, you know, require some handling when you field the study. Like you might take into account like language that you use, the way that you approach them. Like maybe you have to get special permissions if you talk to people who are under 18, stuff like that. So it would show that you have experience with that niche population. Same with market. There are definitely companies out there that are looking for research experience with specific countries, or with just experience in doing international research, because you probably have some relationships with vendors in those countries already, or maybe already speak that language, or you know how to handle like you have cultural literacy and can just handle conversations with people from that culture. Sometimes it's okay to just say international markets too, if you have experience doing that, because it usually means that you have, again, that cultural literacy, but also the ability to work with like different time zones, people who may not speak English as a native language, etc. Talk about your role in the project. This can be something very quick, just like your name and then lead UXR in the parentheses, so that they understand that this is your project that you didn't share with other people. A lead UXR role in a project is going to carry more weight than one where you collaborated with somebody else, for sure. Especially if you're trying to get leveled at a higher level, like mid-level or senior, when you enter a particular organization. And definitely include your stakeholders' titles. I don't think it's necessary to include their names, but this is particularly important in industry where they want to see what types of roles you've worked with past. Because coming from academia, most of us have either worked with other researchers or maybe people in the community, but generally we don't work with people who have completely different job roles from us. So that ability to, I guess, communicate with people who are from a very different background and have a very different like professional understanding of a topic is a very helpful soft skill to have. Then you want to talk about all your different processes, the things that I've sort of been emphasizing as we've gone through this workshop, like keeping your stakeholders informed, knowing when to go back and make sure you guys are still aligned, ways that you brought them along on the journey so that they are already bought in and ready to listen to your insights. How did you manage that? As you were scoping your study, what decisions did you make? Where did you get the background information that you needed to decide what sort of study it should be and what the questions should be? And what constraints did you operate under as you were going through the research project? This is very typically going to be something budget related or time related. If your sample was somewhat niche, again, recruitment difficulties, I think that's something that always comes up. I've very rarely, I don't think I've ever seen a research project that was run completely ideally. There was always some type of snag that you hit or something that constrained you. So it's important to show how you are able to work around those and just make the best of it and still get the answers that you needed. You're always going to run into some little snags while you're fielding that you have to find a solution to. So it's never ideal. And recruiters and hiring managers just especially want to see these types of soft skills. In fact, I would say most of the things mentioned on this slide are really like just a combination of the hard skills that you already have as a researcher, but then the soft skills that you use to work with people and then manage problems. Outcomes and impact. Again, you can keep this very high level or change variables and numbers. You can be vague or just talk about what you're expecting the impact to be from this finding without discussing the specific finding itself. I mean, recruiters and hiring managers are expecting that you will keep things vague. They know that your legal requirement is to protect the information of the person that you did the research for. So it shouldn't be a surprise to them at all. And then you feel free to go back and update your impact as time passes and you start to see changes that are happening as a result of your research. So with any study that you've just done, the impact is still going to seem really small and nebulous. You don't know quite yet what's going to change as a result of it. You can kind of forecast this is what you expect to happen going forward. But as time passes, then you'll start to see changes that the company makes in direction, or that like have made improvements based on what you heard from users, you can add these in and just iterate on the portfolio from there. And sometimes it takes a long time. I am still adding my impact to work that I did over a year ago because I see that changes are happening at the past companies that I've worked at. And even though I can't, I wouldn't claim that my research was the reason that that specific change happened, it was the first step in leading towards it. Definitely talk about what you do differently next time. At Meta, usually the interview process will ask you to talk about how you would have conducted the study in an ideal world. So you can consider a slide that talks about this as well. But it's just important to own up about any mistakes that happen. Maybe forgot to check a particular link, or I don't know. It's hard to think of the mistakes that come up, but they definitely will happen. And just say that this is what happened and this is what you learn from it. This is what you would change in the future, so that you show that you've grown from mistakes that you made and hopefully won't make them again. If you guys are having trouble finding the story to tell or the impact to tell, or not sure what the right level of detail is, please come to me. You can either drop it in the Slack community under this channel that I've mentioned here, or you can direct message me as well. I'm happy to try and help you get to the right, I guess, angle or detail that you're looking for.
And this only applies if you actually signed an NDA, right? Like, not if you didn't sign anything, then there's the expectation that you can't use it, correct?
I think so, but I would say this is just a conversation to have with that particular organization.
I mean,
to be
legally, sure. There isn't the same risk of them coming after you, so to speak, as
I think
you signed an NDA.
I think so, but they were your partners in helping you get the project off the ground. So just once you've completed the project, go to the main stakeholder or whoever would be concerned about the amount of information that's in the project and say, please have a look at it. Do you have any concerns anywhere? Is there anything that you rephrase or omit? And I think that with past positions that I've held, even my managers have said, whenever you're ready to show a case study that you might present in an interview, just come to me. Feel free to walk through it with me, and we can talk about level and concerns there too. So maintain the good relationship. Don't burn any bridges, because you never know if you might want to work with these people again. I guess this is sort of side advice, but I've always heard that the UX world is small, so you don't want to burn bridges because of that, because you will very likely work with the same people again. And these people can always be referrals for you for future positions too. So it's just good to maintain a good relationship, be transparent, and keep that flow of information going both ways. Okay, make it pretty. Somebody asked me during session 1, well, I'm not a designer. Do I need the help of a designer to make my deck look good? Sometimes you might get assets from your designers that you're working with. They might give you a background to use, or some sample screenshots of their mock-ups to use. But your content is ultimately going to be more important than showing designs, since you are not the one who created the designs. You'll focus more on the research itself. And I should say, just a moment, back up a little. What I didn't talk about in these 2 slides is the fact that you would include your background information that you gathered, talk about your methods and participants, and the actual stimuli that you use, whether it was a survey or a card survey, etc., and the findings. And all of these things are just kind of built into your discussion of what we normally convey in a research deliverable. So you do want to make sure that the presentation is still cohesive visually, because they are looking to see how well you communicate and convey information to them. And I think that everybody in this workshop has either been an instructor or has experience presenting information. So likely you guys have even more experience doing this than I do. So it's not a problem for you, I think. But again, it's always great to get feedback from another pair of eyes, from fellow researcher or even manager, to make sure that you haven't omitted important information. So just keep your presentation easy to look at so that they can find the sections that they want quickly. Don't frustrate them as they try to search for particular information. And some of the basic things about, making a presentation, just look at the font, make sure it's readable, make sure that the color of the text does not, that it's readable, and then that the color of the background doesn't detract from that. Things look relatively organized. Try to avoid large blocks of text. Those of you who are instructors likely know that very well. And just to find ways to break up the text. Use icons, use bullet points, add in some photos just for some relief here and there. And if you know that you're a person who maybe has particular trouble with spelling and grammar, absolutely get multiple people to look over it. And even if you're a person who is typically quite good with your language control, we always miss things. Like the best of us, we absolutely miss things. I used to work as an editor. I still catch mistakes in my own work. So I am always happy when somebody is able to take a second look at it. But in particular, find people who are unfamiliar with the work to review and make sure that you presented information that's still understandable without going into too much detail. I would say that likely by now you know whether you're a person who tends to keep things very high level and usually needs to go into more detail, or if you're a person like me who very often goes into too much detail because you want to avoid misinforming people, and then you completely miss the big picture. So knowing which person you are, build in some extra time as you're creating your presentations to sort of like pull back. So if you're a person who needs to give more detail, make sure you build in some time to like look for the places where that information is missing, and plug it in, have someone look at it and say, well, I don't understand what's going on here. I think something's missing, so that you can provide all the information that is necessary. And then for the people like me who give too much information, build in time to take out all of the extra stuff to cut down some of the words and understandable. Here are some of the presentation resources that I've mentioned. I would love to know if you guys know of resources that are missing here, because I think that many of you also do presentations yourself. So please share with me, either in the chat or just ping me on Slack and tell me if you have more suggestions for me. But these are all great resources. Most of them are completely free. There are a few of these stock photo sites that include premium photos that require money, but there should be plenty of excellent photos that don't require any extra money on there as well. And I want to say that these types of resources have come a long way in the last 10 years or so. It was quite difficult in the past to find free graphics and free photos that could be used, but we have so many options now. Pexels is particularly good for diverse photos. If you want people of color in some of your images, nappy.co specifically focuses on people of color. So that's another great place to make sure that your presentations are, reflecting the state of the world, that we are all international people. Some of these I don't use quite as much, so I won't speak on them here, but these are definitely resources that I go back to time and time again. I tend to lean on some of the free slide templates that come with photos built in already, as well as some icons and like diagrams, that they're all just kind of like in there, and pick and choose which ones you actually want to use for your presentation. It definitely makes life so much easier than when people were generating their slide decks from nothing. And then I've also added a few other presentation resources that may not be relevant to you guys now, but may find them helpful in the future. So some of these give you photos of people who don't actually exist, in case you just want to like give an example of a user. There are people who, thought leaders who have said, well, maybe it's not great to put an actual photo of some type of person, because then stakeholders get too focused on, oh, okay, this is what this person looks like, and we are designing for like this specific person. It's maybe not where you want to go, but the resources available have it. And then this is one for converting video files to GIFs, just in case you have like a prototype that you need to illustrate. For a case study portfolio, I guess I probably wouldn't suggest actually putting a video of your participant in the presentation. But if you were presenting something for work, then that's something to do. So I'm going to speed it up because I just realized we're out of time. Do we have any questions about what I just spoke on? Any questions? If not, feel free to ask me later too if you think of something. I will not go into detail about this because this is outside of the scope of this workshop, but I did provide some bullet points about what your case study might look like if it's a presentation that you're actually doing in a job interview, as well as what it might look like if it's a deck that you're sharing out to people at your company. So here are just some things to consider, and I will leave it here in the deck.